Hey, I'm Dr. Yaz. I'm a triple board certified endocrinologist specializing in obesity and diabetes. And today we're going to be discussing gut health. So if you've been wondering if your gut has been messed up and if that's affecting your diabetes, you're on the right track. Check this episode out. Hello, friends. Welcome back. Today we're talking all about the gut. All right. So I get this all the time in my practice. All my diabetic patients, especially when they're newly diagnosed, they are not loving their gut health, okay? And they know it's such a hot topic now that their gut is absolutely related to their diabetes. They're not sure if it's the diabetes causing the gut issues or if the gut issues cause the diabetes, but they are both absolutely intertwined, and it's absolutely pivotal we dive into this. And so in the Vitality prescription, we dive into the latest health and wellness so you live your best life, and part of that as a diabetic is getting your gut health totally tuned in. Gut health has become such a hot topic in the news these days. It's funny, we're actually having a great week this week. Our book, The Anti-Inflammatory Diet for Beginners, that I wrote with my husband, has reached a BSR of 1,100. And then we got on the bestsellers listed for Amazon. So if you don't know what that means, it means the bestsellers rank. So of all the books out there, it reached really high. And it's been number one for ulcers and gastritis in that topic on Amazon, and also for, abdominal disorders. So it's interesting that, people are really starting to understand that their diet is playing a huge role in their gut, and that if you're diabetic, your gut absolutely needs to be fixed for the complications of diabetes to go down and for the sugar to improve. So today, that's all we're talking about, is the importance of gut health for diabetics and things you can start to do. Now, you may be wondering, what exactly does gut health have to do with diabetes? Isn't diabetes all about sugar and insulin? Well, yes, those are critical components, but recent research has shown that our gut health absolutely plays a significant role in regulating these processes. See, the gut, often referred to as our second brain, is home to trillions of microorganisms, and collectively, they're known as the gut microbiota. And these tiny organisms are not just passive little passengers, they absolutely participate in various bodily functions, including digestion, metabolism, and even our immune response. And see, that gut microbiome, it influences our overall health in ways we could only be beginning to understand. So when it comes to diabetes, right, in both type 1 and type 2, maintaining this healthy gut will have profound effects. So in this episode, I'm going to be discussing a lot of different reviews, a lot of different studies. There's 1,000 more like them. Okay, so I'm not saying anything that's profound. This is knowledge that's out there, okay? So in 2016, a review by Blandino et al., they looked at the role of gut microbiome in regulating fat accumulation and inflammation, okay? And this review compiled data from multiple studies, included that a balanced gut is absolutely crucial for maintaining metabolic health and preventing obesity-related diseases, including diabetes. Okay, and this again is where I was talking about before. Our book that we were talking about before, right, had nothing to do with, wasn't supposed to be about gut health. It was about inflammation and the anti-inflammatory diet and how that affects everything, and kind of had to fix that in, a lot of recipes and stuff. People are starting to understand that their metabolic health is completely linked to their gut health, to things like inflammation, that it's all working in a symbiotic relationship, right? So how does this actually work, right? So one key mechanism, all right, is the production of short-chain fatty acids by gut bacteria. See, these gut bacteria, they help maintain the gut lining, they reduce inflammation, they influence appetite and insulin sensitivity. Another 2023 study by Patel et al., they looked at changes in gut microbiome composition and how it affected glucose regulation and insulin sensitivity. And they found that gut dysbiosis, or imbalance, basically led to inflammation and therefore insulin resistance, highlighting the gut's role in diabetes management. Moreover, there's so much research out there that diabetics often have less diverse gut microbiomes compared to those without it. Okay, so meaning they have lower levels of the beneficial bacteria and higher levels of harmful bacteria. Another study in 2021, they looked at the gut microbiome, and they looked at differences in diabetic patients compared to healthy individuals, right? And they used a stool sample analysis to identify the microbiome composition. And the gut dysbiosis significantly was associated with severity of diabetes and the complications. And so, if you ever actually did a stool microbiome test, you can do this, by the way. They have a lot of places that do this, like Rupa Health. They have it, and I love their 360 microbiome study, where you give a stool sample, and you'll see that if you're suffering with diabetes or obesity, odds are you are not having the best microbiome, okay? And so actually, for a lot of my clients, they need to see that, right? They need to see that the microbiome is different, so they understand they need to change that. And with that will come the other things often. So in today's episode, I'm also going to be looking at the intricate relationship between the gut health and the diabetes, delve into the latest scientific findings, look at actionable advice on how you can improve it, right? So you can better manage your diabetes. So I'm going to cover everything from, dietary changes, probiotic supplements, to potential future therapies, okay? So whether you're living with diabetes or have a loved one who is just simply interested in the fascinating world of gut health, stay here. So at the end of the episode, you're going to have much deeper understanding on how to do this. So for our first segment, I really want to talk about just the gut microbiome and metabolic regulation, okay? When we're talking about different review articles, they've seen, right, that gut bacteria, they're crucial in controlling fermentation and the absorption of polysaccharides to produce short-chain fatty acids, also known as SCFAs. And these SCFAs are essential for maintaining the gut barrier integrity and regulating inflammation. And so what you have to understand is we know inflammation is linked to diabetes. We know it's linked to obesity, right? And so it's absolutely, mediating these metabolic processes. So how does the gut bacteria do this? The key lies in the short-chain fatty acids. So they maintain the integrity themselves, okay, of the gut lining and reduce the inflammation. So examples of the SCFAs like butyrate, propionate, or acetate are produced during fermentation, right, of dietary fibers by gut bacteria. And so these SCFAs not only provide energy to the cell lining the gut, but they also play a role in regulating the immune response and reducing the inflammation directly. They influence the release of things like hormones, right, that influence our appetite, our insulin sensitivity, and so therefore they directly impact the glucose metabolism. Another thing is that they help with maintenance of the gut barrier integrity. See, a healthy gut barrier, right, prevents the harmful things from getting in and leaking to the bloodstream, which could otherwise trigger inflammation and insulin resistance. That's why if you've ever seen someone with an infection, right, we see the glucose goes through the roof. Those things absolutely do affect us. And so they did a study, one was by Patel et al., and they looked at the gut microbiome and the composition, right, and they saw that this gut dysbiosis, right, it had that basically permeability, also known as leaky gut, right, and that inflammation and subsequently that insulin resistance. And in addition to that, when it comes to like how we choose what to eat, our mood is absolutely pivotal, right? And if we know that, the gut, right, it talks gut-brain connection, right? We always hear about that all the time now, right? That, that connection involves the neural, the hormonal, the immunological pathways, right? So it's not just the digestive health, but it's our mood, our stress, and that affects our eating behaviors, and behavior is everything, right? So alteration of the gut microbiome absolutely not only directly impacts the glucose, but it's affecting our behavior and how we eat. So you may be thinking to yourself, okay, well, what am I going to do about this, right? And there's so many studies on this. One in 2021 by Yatku et al. They looked at dietary changes, right, and increasing fiber on the gut microbiome. And they increased fiber in the foods for one group and reduced processed foods. And then they looked at the stool samples, and they saw significant improvements, right, on the gut microbiome diversity and composition, which is associated with better glucose control and reduced insulin resistance in the study. So it just showed, how much you can really just by increasing fiber, decreasing processed foods, really improve that gut health. So now that we understand how this is affecting our insulin resistance and glucose metabolism, right, I want to look at gut dysbiosis and diabetes specifically. So when we say dysbiosis, it really means that we have an imbalance of the microbiome, okay? And when we're in a situation where the harmful bacteria outnumber the beneficial bacteria, this is when they've seen multiple times, again, that our energy metabolism, inflammation, and the immune system are completely thrown off, okay? So they saw that this gut dysbiosis contributes to the pathogenesis of diabetes by affecting our energy metabolism, okay? So it's not one of those things like, I have an iron gut, I have a good gut. It really is just that balance of good bacteria and bad bacteria, okay? The more of the harmful bacteria, the worse you're gonna be. So again, how does this happen? It really is that simple. It causes inflammation. Inflammation is where the balance of the gut bacteria is just disrupted. Okay, you have a weakened gut barrier, harmful systems come into this system. This triggers an inflammatory response, which is a very, very well-known contributor to insulin resistance and all metabolic disorders, to be honest. So another study looked at by Al Jamil et al. In 2021, they looked at the impact of the gut microbiome and diabetes, and they looked at this dysbiosis, right? And they saw that leaky gut, that gut permeability, that inflammation developing as a key factor for type 2 diabetes. And so there's been multiple studies looking at diabetic patients who had lower levels of beneficial bacteria and higher levels of the harmful bacteria compared to healthy individuals. And it just, again, showed that association, okay? And these studies basically show that restoring that healthy balance really could have a potential therapeutic strategy, for managing diabetes. So basically, in summary, what you really need to understand is gut dysbiosis, meaning more harmful bacteria than good bacteria, is linked to the development and progression of the diabetes. And a lot of times, we talk about it being a progressive disease, right? But we do see people, right, who do reverse their diabetes, right? People hate that word, but it's true. Some people are able to go back to eating a certain way again. And I think for those people, things like toxins and their gut microbiome absolutely are playing more of a role than maybe other people where it's more of a genetic kind of disorder or having more to do with their weight. But again, if you fix the gut microbiome, maybe your weight improves, right? So the idea is that this is a pivotal part that I think most of us, when we're trying to manage our diabetes initially, we're just told, lose weight, here's the script, eat less. Right? And that's not going to fix your gut microbiome, like in any way, right? So now I want to look in like what you're going to do about it, right? So besides obviously less processed foods, more fiber, right? The specific things for probiotic brands, strains, and supporting research that's out there, okay? So when we're looking at the therapeutic strategies for improving gut health and managing diabetes, I want to focus, because I get asked all the time, the best probiotics, prebiotics, and symbiotics. And I want to review some key research findings and mention, maybe a couple brands if you don't know where to get started. Let's talk about probiotics, okay? Probiotics are live microorganisms that when consumed in adequate amount, confer health benefits to the host. Prebiotics, on the other hand, are non-digestible food ingredients that promote the growth of bacteria that are beneficial in the gut. So there's a nice review, and again, there's a gazillion of these. In 2022 by Barlow et al., they looked at highlighting the benefits of probiotics and prebiotics in your improved gut health, right? And it looked at the highlighted benefits of both prebiotics and prebiotics, so pro and pre, in improving gut health and glycemic control. And the review synthesized findings from multiple studies, and they show that these supplements can enhance the diversity and function of our gut microbiome, which in turn helps regulate blood sugar levels and reduce inflammation, which, like we said, hurts the sugar, hurts the weight. So how does this exactly work, right? So the primary mechanism involves enhancing population of beneficial bacteria and reducing the harmful ones. That's simple. And again, there's other studies on this, but one in 2021 by Zhang et al., they looked at this mechanism a little bit more in detail, and they found that probiotics and prebiotics increase the production of those short-chain fatty acids, which we said before, maintain the integrity of the gut lining. They reduce the inflammation. And so not only are they promoting the growth of these beneficial bacteria like lactobacillus, bifidobacterium, which, compete basically with these bad bacteria, okay, and they inhibit their growth. So it's in helping their overall gut health, overall metabolic function, which is why we need it for diabetes. So I want to look at some other, evidence here for the use of probiotics in managing diabetes. So in another study in 2019 by Woldemack et al., they looked at clinical trials looking at the effectiveness of probiotic supplements in diabetes. And these trials looked at, administering certain strains, right, to see how it helps with their blood sugar, right, and the insulin sensitivity and the inflammatory markers over several weeks. And the results were promising. It showed that the probiotic group had a significant improvement in the glycemic control and reduced the A1C levels. The hemoglobin A1C, that 3-month marker telling you how the sugar overall is doing. That's based on how much basic glucose accumulates on the hemoglobin molecule, okay? And they found that suggests that probiotic supplements can be absolutely effective as an adjunct therapy for diabetic management. In addition to the general benefits of probiotics in general, specific strains have been shown to be effective, okay? And I'm going to name a couple. There are so many out there. I can't try them all, but I have tried a good bit of these, and these are ones I particularly like. So one is Pendulum for glucose control. This is a well-known brand that's been out now. I think Halle Berry's a spokesperson, so who doesn't like that? But this one, they offer a probiotic specifically formulated for the management of type 2 diabetes and also for weight loss. It includes something called Akkermansia muciniphila. So when you look at those stool studies I was telling you about, like that are offered from Rupa Health, people with obesity, with diabetes, will be missing Akkermansia compared to the normal weight or those without diabetes. Okay, that's in multiple studies. And so their glucose control probiotic has the Akkermansia and Clostridium butyricum, which basically has been shown clinically to improve insulin sensitivity and reduce the A1C levels. There was a study published in the Journal of Nature Medicine which demonstrated supplementation with Akkermansia improved metabolic health markers in overweight and obese individuals, showing their effects. So it's not just the studies from the brand itself, but also other studies, okay? And so another effective brand I like is Floradapt Intensive GI, which includes strain like Lactobacillus plantarum and Bifidobacterium lactis. And these are known for their benefits in enhancing the gut barrier function and reducing inflammation. And there's other good brands out there too. One is Align that contains Bifidobacterium longum, and another one is Culturelle. They use Lactobacillus rhamnosus. I use this one for my patients often for those who get chronic UTIs. I found my diabetic patients who do, are prone to UTIs, Culturelle over 3 months really does change that UTI vantage point for them. And this is not like done by a study. This is me just in clinical practice. I've noticed the other one I mentioned, Pendulum, way less cravings. It's almost, it mimics like the natural GLP, and it's pretty amazing. So the appetite is improved. So Bifidobacterium longum has been shown to reduce inflammation and improve lipid metabolism, which is something that as a diabetic often, is also happening, right? You may have also high cholesterol panels in addition to high A1C. Another one, Lactobacillus rhamnosus, IgG, the one that's been seen in Culturelle, the one I was saying I use for a lot of my patients with chronic UTIs, has absolutely been researched and it's shown to improve the gut function, reduce the gut permeability, and therefore reduces systemic inflammation. So in summary, by including these probiotics, right, you can absolutely offer substantial benefits in improving gut health and managing diabetes. And these supplements work by enhancing the population of the beneficial bacteria. And clinical trials have shown their effectiveness in improving glucose control, right? Reducing the inflammation, making them very valuable. Now, in the next segment, I want to talk about dietary modifications, right? Because I love to eat and I love to talk about food. Because, I think all endocrinologists, by the way, I don't know if that's a true thing. I don't know if any endocrinologists are listening to this podcast, but I'm pretty sure we're all obsessed with food, right? We talk about it all day with our patients. I would want to say, and this might be a far-reaching statement, but I would say of the specialties for internal medicine, we are definitely the most preventative holistic kind of specialty in my book, because we do focus on diet a lot, right? When we're focusing on what we eat, right, for gut health and diabetes management, I want to talk about having a balanced diet with high fiber and low processed foods. That's the first thing I want you to do, right? The alcohol, processed sugars. Before we get crazy about, people are like, oh, this food, this superfood. That's all great. That's lovely. If you have a lot of money and you want to buy these supplements and do it, fine. Do it. But what I want you to focus on is just cutting down the processed food, cutting down that inflammation. It's a lot easier to lower inflammation, right? Wasn't in the system to begin with, right? So if you didn't have the sugar and there's no inflammation, you're not gonna have a problem. But if it's high, then you have to work really hard to get it down. Okay, so and there's so many studies. One by Gill et al. 2022, they looked at dietary fibers and supporting gut health. And that review, they looked at numerous studies and they found that a high fiber diet helps that beneficial gut bacteria, which in turn, like we said, produces those short chain fatty acids, SCFAs, and these SCFAs are crucial for maintaining the gut barrier, and they reduce inflammation, improve insulin sensitivity, all of which is essential for managing diabetes. In addition, fiber, functional foods play a huge role in diabetes. So functional foods have a potential effect, right, beyond their basic nutrition. So example, there's certain foods that are fortified with probiotics, prebiotics, and other bioactive compounds. There's a nice review by Berzitagogli, a nice review I saw in 2021. They looked at the impact of functional foods on diabetes management. And they saw that incorporating functional foods like fermented dairy products, right, like certain yogurts, right, legumes, whole grains, can absolutely improve gut microbiome composition. One thing I love to do is I will take, like if I'm making like my own dressing, first of all, I love things like kimchi. I'll add my own miso paste. So instead of doing, a salad dressing with mustard, I'll instead use a miso paste. It gives me that same kind of like texture, but it does help with that prebiotic. I limit my processed foods for sure for my patients and myself. Things that are high in sugar, unhealthy fats, and additives, they absolutely disrupt the gut microbiome and inflammation. So the other thing is probiotic rich foods, right? Like kefir, sauerkraut, yogurt. These are very helpful. Adding prebiotic foods like garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, bananas, oats that are high in prebiotics can help. Although I will say bananas and oats are a little bit higher in carbs, so maybe prioritize more of the garlic, onions, and leeks if you're diabetic in this group. But over time, when you're more in a maintenance phase, incorporating these foods can be helpful. I want you to stay hydrated, drink plenty of water, supporting digestion, because this absolutely helps your mucosal lining, right? Which is essential, right? Your gut barrier. I want you to balance your meals, okay? I want to look at a mixture of protein on your plate. I want to see some healthy fats. I want some complex carbs to help your overall metabolic health. So by doing these kind of things, right, you're really improving your gut health and managing your diabetes effectively. The other thing I want to talk about, in our last little segment here to close out the podcast is exciting research looking at, fecal microbiotic transplantation. This has not been, put really into too much practice yet, but the process looks at, restoring healthy gut balance and bacteria, okay, from a healthy donor, right, transplant into the gut of someone else. Okay, and they did a nice review by Safari et al. And they looked at the potential of this to treat metabolic disorders, including diabetes. And their review, they wanted to see, right, several studies where they showed that, right, this transplantation improved the insulin sensitivity and reduced inflammation in diabetic patients. So it shows that it could be promising, for managing this, definitely in the future. Another exciting area of research is the gut-liver axis. Okay, we talk about the gut and brain, connection, but the gut-liver axis refers to the bidirectional relationship between the two, okay? And this is pivotal for metabolism and immune function. And there's a nice review, 2023, Crudell et al. They looked at the implications of the gut-liver axis for diabetics, and they found alterations in the gut microbiome affected our liver function. And as we know, liver function is a huge thing when it comes to our glucose metabolism, right? So the authors suggested that targeting the gut-liver axis could offer new therapeutic approaches, right? Looking at the use of probiotics, prebiotics, and other interventions to modulate your gut microbiome to improve your liver health. So I found that very interesting. So I do think, there's ongoing research and more is going to be coming out. The gut is such a hot topic right now, okay? So to summarize today's segment, all about the gut and diabetes, we've covered a lot of ground. So I just want to wrap it up, right, for final thoughts, because I know I told you a lot and quoted a lot of studies and review articles, and I just want you to take these big takeaways, okay? When it comes to gut health and diabetes, we know that if we include the use of things like probiotics, prebiotics, and symbiotics, this may be helpful for our gut, right? And we said more beneficial bacteria over harmful ones, better gut microbiome, better glycemic control, less inflammation. That's the big takeaway here, okay? And if you can fix your diet, that's probably the first thing I want you to do. Increase that fiber, decrease the processed foods, maybe include a probiotic like the brands like Pendulum, Glucose Control, FloraAdapt, Culturelle. These are all ones, and there's more out there. Those are just, and Align, that's another good one. Those are just the ones I'm mentioning on this podcast because they're the ones I've tried with my patients. The other thing I want to mention is if you can't afford these kind of supplements right now, or you just really feel it's overwhelming to add that in, honestly, just adding in some fiber, some vegetables daily is a huge step. Just cutting out the processed food is just the biggest thing you could do for yourself. Maybe challenge yourself to a few weeks, just 21 days, no processed food, and just see how much better you feel, and then take a look at that blood sugar. All right, that's it for this one. I will see you guys in the next, and happy eating.